a biker gang, the Russian mob, an underground like society of like criminals, and like the Mexican cartel, all in one movie. They all show up, and it's four different Jason Statham movies rolled into one. There's also this. It's just, you know what, you gotta see it for yourself. If you want to have a bad movie night, I recommend this movie and my number one pick, which we will get to very soon.
Okay, we will continue then. I will give my number one worst film of 2025, which is, might not even remember when it came out, Fight or Flight. This came out back in May with Josh Hartnett in it. Now, it's actually a lot of the complaints that I had for Love Hurts. This is not an 87 North production. It's far worse. But a lot of the same complaints I had for Love Hurts apply to this one, too. Just when I thought that Josh Hartnett was kind of getting a pretty decent career revival between Oppenheimer and Trap, there's this movie, too. This movie really sucks, too. I would rather endure like 3 hours of in-flight turbulence than to watch 10 minutes of this shit again. This is like the kind of action movie that's a copy of a copy. You know what happens like if you Xerox something and then you Xerox the copy, you start getting those little black blotches everywhere and it starts getting indistinguishable. This thing is a copy of a copy to the point where it's like a collage of ink spots. And it doesn't have a shred of originality to it. What it should be at its core is like a mile-high cat and mouse chase, which is what it is. They're on a plane for much of this movie. But the fucking thing has no pacing, has no sort of grasp on tension or build up. It just wants to be like completely graphically vulgar. And it's very vulgar to the point where it's not funny. It mistakes vulgarity for humor too. Josh Hartnett feels very miscast in this thing. Doesn't have a handle on who he's trying to be or what he's trying to do. It's loud. It's a loud movie, too. And what you then have is basically a story about a guy who gets conned in by this woman to take on one last job. How many times have we heard this before, too? And is now aboard an international flight and has to identify a terrorist that's on board. There's zilch in the realm of suspense here. There's nothing in the realm of creativity. This was a brutal watch. This Love Hurts had the benefit of being short. This was like an hour and 40 minutes. And this is one of those bad movies, too. Like, Catherine and I looked at each other, I think, like 15 minutes into this thing, and we're like, this is going to be a fucking challenge to sit through. Like, you know, if I could think of something even remotely better to do right now, like, we might leave. And then it got to the point where, like, 45 minutes in, it's like, well, we've been this far. We've gotten this far. Awful movie. And this is something, too, that after it left theaters, I have not seen a single thing on. I don't even know how well it did in theaters, too.
It did
but yeah, if you're looking for,
it didn't crack top 5. I remember that. It didn't even crack.
Did it really? That's good. Good. You know, there's some good news in there. But yeah, no, this is terrible too. It reminded me too that, like, even though, because it's so similar to Love Hurts, and a lot of the same complaints I had for Love Hurts apply to Fight or Flight, but it reminded me though that, like, even Love Hurts has, like, 87 North, being that it's a company founded by stuntmen, like, have a certain grace and a certain standard for how they at least want their action. Love Hurts is a crappy movie, but Love Hurts at least has a professional aspect of stunt work and everything like that, and crafts. It doesn't look sloppy in that way, where this just looks poor. It's one of the ugliest movies next to Wolfman released this year. Last year, technically. Fight or Flight's my number one.
It would be really messed up if you and Catherine did get up and, like, an attendant came out over and would say, please stay seated till, you know, while the flight is in motion and everything, like, you know, while the seatbelt sign remains on.
Oh man, you know, that's like in Megalopolis when they made a poor usher go up front and, like, read this thing. Yeah, ask a question or something, or did, like, some sort of half-assed usher participation thing into it. Like, come on, Francis Ford, you know these people don't make that much money. Like, you know. Anyway, yeah, that's Fight or Flight, though. Dom, then Joe, for your number one.
Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, and for the first time in 2 weeks, without 3 slideshows to run through either. This is Sleepless with Steve, Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly behind the microphones today to review our first movie of 2026, not the first release of 2026. That was kind of a tie between Primate and We Bury the Dead. Really, all the new movies this year have been predominantly horror movies. I mean, this past weekend, you had Return to Silent Hill as well. Next weekend, or this coming weekend, rather, you have Iron Lung. You know, so there's been a lot of horror movies this year, but we're reviewing 28 years later, The Bone Temple, which is left us with a lot to talk about. It feels like just 6 months ago we saw a 28 years later movie, because we did back in June. I was not here for that review. I remember it came out my birthday weekend, so Catherine and I saw it late, so you guys got to talk about
the real 28 weeks later was the previous movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say, give or take.
That's actually a really good point.
That's not bad. It has to be pretty close, because it was about half a year wait, and there's 52 weeks in a year. You know, so it had to be pretty similar to that time frame. I'm excited to talk about this movie, though. I really am. I didn't get to talk about 28. I don't want to call it the first one, because it's not really the first one. It's confusing because of the fact that, like, you had 28 days later. I'm sure you guys talked about the chronology of these movies. You had 28 days later all the way back in 2002. You had 28 weeks later back in 2007. And then you had 28 years later in 2025. And this 28 years later was the start of a new trilogy, even though there was really no previous trilogy. This is the start of a new trilogy. So this is the second part, 28 years later, The Bone Temple. And don't ask me, I don't know where the hell the Sandra Bullock alcoholism movie 28 Days fits into all this. Watch that movie after we watched the first 3 28 Days movies. I was confused. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Anyway, though, we're going to talk about this, though. I feel like if anybody in movies, too, we've reviewed, in the last, 2 years, we've probably reviewed, of all the directors and writers, we've probably reviewed more Alex Garland movies than anybody, any other writer, director, actor
of the Sleepless reboot.
Honestly, did we review Men on the show? Did we review Men?
Yeah, you and I did.
I thought we did. Yeah,
Men 4 out of 10. They're not the movie, just Men in general. Like we are disgusting.
We reviewed Men back in 2022, I remember. Alex Garland wrote and directed that. And then we reviewed Civil War. He co-directed Warfare last year, which made Dom, was it your top 5 last year?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It was number 5. Warfare was number 5.
Okay.
Top number 5 for 2025. Wasn't that long ago. But and then you two reviewed 28 years later, and now we're reviewing 28 years later, The Bone Temple. I'll launch into a screed about this in a few minutes. First things first, though, we really didn't get to do any kind of like introductions. I don't know how long you guys want to go with it, just because of the fact that like the last 2 weeks we didn't really do this because we had such big shows. This show will be far shorter, I assume, than the last 2. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good. It's cold. I'm glad I saw this movie the weekend it came out, because the previous weekend would have not been an ideal weekend to travel, because it was freezing outside. Where I was at, especially, the ground didn't get plowed that well or salted that well. That a lot of the streets by my house were still pretty slippery. So I was glad. I was like, okay, I'm glad I saw it opening weekend. I'm glad I got it out of the way. Other than that, though, man, I mean, it's just been like, it's never that I don't mind winter. I don't mind the season, but when we get to this point in winter where there's snow and it's painfully cold, that's when I'm like, all right, I'm done with it. That's it. I want it gone now. Like, I can't wait to get to February, because a 30-degree day sounds like fucking summer right now.
You know, it's so funny too. Out here, it's been really cold. I think it's been a little bit colder out here. Not to quantify suffering, but I think it's been a little colder out here because we're further north. Than it has been back home. It was that day. It was bad last week. Friday was -18 out here first thing in the morning.
God.
and it was -40. I think we had the coldest wind chills in the state of Iowa. It was like -48, and it was so funny because the other day, yesterday, I think it was like 10 degrees yesterday, and it felt fucking nice. That was I walked outside, the sun was out. I felt like I could get warmth from it, and I'm like, I had a hoodie on under my heavy jacket. I actually unzipped my jacket. I'm like, damn, it ain't bad out here.
What was it? I had one of my friends, he moved from Chicago to Indiana. He only stayed in Indiana for 2 years. He's moving from Indiana down south to San Antonio, Texas. He drove there this previous weekend. He told me that as you got further south, you saw the limitations that those states have when it comes to salting and plowing the streets, that eventually these 1 to 2 lane highways became just slush and people were sliding and slipping. He said he almost crashed about 3 times.
Oh, I believe it, man, because I think, what was it, 38 of the 50 states this past weekend had below freezing temperatures. Yeah. And then you factor in my cousins in Nashville, and I know they got rocked. They got rocked in Tennessee, and Louisiana, Texas, especially, they've got a few inches of snow. These areas that don't see snow at all, if they get 1.5 inches of snow a year, that's a lot. You know what I mean? And it's cataclysmic because they don't have, like you said, they don't have plows. They don't have salt trucks. They don't have hell, their buildings aren't insulated like ours are. You know what I mean? I know there's still piping and plumbing problems in lieu of this shit, even in the Midwest and up north too. But man, you go down south where they don't have insulation into the walls and everything like that too. And it's that we laugh up here because it's they get 1 inch of snow and school's closed for a week. That's fucking life threatening, literally, given their road conditions and what they are used to.
Yeah.
It's infrastructure. It all comes down to as other people can say this cleanly. It's all about infrastructure, and you don't realize how much. Last thing I'll say, you don't realize how much of your life depends on the system that is around you. Yeah. Your
100%
hour to hour survival, right? From your water to your gas to your electricity to your roads,
and don't let people
to airplanes over the sky.
You don't let people kid you about the people who live out in the Midwest, being oh, it's just a little bit of snow, they should be able to handle it. I'll tell you what, after working in city and government now for 5 to 6 years, let me tell you something. Anytime the first sight of snowfall falls, people lose their mind out here. They're like, oh my God, when the plows coming out? Are you guys salting? You guys aren't salting enough. There's snow sticking to the ground. It's just chill. You've been living here for how long? It'll be fine.
No, it's true. I mean, we go through this every year. Although I say though, this has been
had a couple one of the worst ones.
We had quote unquote mild winters really the past 2 to 3 years in the Midwest. Yeah. It really feels like, and when I say Midwest, I'm talking about our small little enclave of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana. We had relatively comparably mild winters. This winter's been rough.
Yeah.
With the snow and the freezing cold. Usually we always tend to get one day that's sub-zero, -10 with -30 wind chills. We always get 1 or 2 or 3 days. This has been a fucking full-on week and a half, 2 weeks now. It's getting to the point, and it's still going to continue at least out here into next week. This cold snap won't snap, really. Yeah. It's good to see you guys, though. Are we ready to jump into 28 years later, the Bone Temple?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I ain't gonna take too long with this though. First things first, though, we were talking about just the weather being shit across the country. This is the lowest box office weekend too, this past weekend in many, many moons. The top grosser was that Chris Pratt Mercy movie with only 10.8 million. That's how low this box office weekend was. Just indicative of all the shit going on.
Not to jump ahead, but I feel as if this movie might be making an appearance next year at some point on this show.
Ooh, okay. Somebody actually saw the damn thing. Ooh, say no more. Say no more. I'll have to be reminded. I'll probably have to be reminded it exists here. 28 years later, the Bone Temple. First things first, I did a little bit of research on this when I was doing my review at stevepulaski.com of this movie. I cannot find another example. Now, maybe you, Dom or Joe, maybe you can help me out here. Maybe I missed a cruel oversight. 28 years later and the Bone Temple were shot back to back. They were concurrent, or not concurrent, they were back-to-back productions.
Yeah.
I cannot remember the last time 2 movies were filmed back-to-back and switched directors. And I did a little bit of research and I couldn't find it either. I couldn't find, because usually like Hunger Games Part 1 and 2, Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2, like it's the same director because it's the same cast and it's the same writer and everything. They basically contract them for like one opus long movie that films over the span of months. This is the first time I can think, at least in modern film history, especially, it's not like it's two different movies either. It's the same series. Danny Boyle, one of the creators of the original 28 Days Later, he directed 28 Years Later, which came out 6 months ago. Nia DaCosta, who is famous for Candyman, the sequel that came out in 2021, and then she was also famous for The Marvels, too, which came out a few years ago. She directed The Bone Temple. And it's a very unique thing. It's a very, very unique thing when you have a movie completely switch directors. When they're being shot back to back. So I thought that was really fascinating right off the cuff. And this one picks up almost immediately after 28 Years Later finishes. We are dropped back into the story of Spike, played by Alfie Williams, although he's not really the main character of this movie anymore. Not like he was in the 28 Years Later, though. Mm-hmm. He's now, at the end of 28 Years Later, he crossed paths with Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, played by Jack O'Connell of Sinners fame. And Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal has this squad of goons known as the Fingers that basically are Satanists that are trying to appease Satan, who they refer to as Old Neck in this movie. You also have Ralph Fiennes returns as Dr. Ian Kelson. He returns too, and he is kind of experimenting on an alpha zombie named Samson and trying to see if there is a cure for this rage virus that continues to plague the area. So there's like 3 different storylines going on. It's Spike grappling with this group of Satanists that he's fallen into, Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal trying to appease his father Satan, and Dr. Kelson, who is trying to revive Samson. And you get a little bit of Samson's adventures on his own too. So this is kind of like a triptych middle part of this new trilogy, directed by Nia DaCosta, written by Alex Garland. I don't want to steal what you said, Joe. I don't want to take what you said about this. And maybe this will bat you up. You could take it somewhere else if you want. You compared this to another trilogy, I think it's 4 movies technically, another rebooted series. Do you remember what that was?
Yes, I do. Right when I got done watching the movie, the Planet of the Apes rebooted trilogy, or even if you want to call it 4 movies now, with the latest one we got that came out 2 years ago, came to my mind. Because the reason being is, like, I kind of look at the way that these films have been written now, including even the earlier movies too, the 28 Days, 28 Weeks. But now with 28 Years being like, okay, we're going to do like a trilogy here. It's all going to be one story leading to the next. I kind of look at this as like it's almost like the zombie version of the Planet of the Apes reboot movies. And the reason being is, I'm not saying like it because of the similar themes or anything, but it's just like how the writing is on a sci-fi horror level. Like, because even though this is zombies, this does have a very dystopian sci-fi feel to it throughout most of it as well. It's also doing bold new things with the zombie genre. Not completely new, but like, you know, stuff that like a lot of zombie directors or a lot of people who make zombie like media would be kind of like hesitant to dip their toe in that water. Like, ooh, like let's be honest here. I mean, we could talk about 28 Years Later, but a zombie giving birth, that was crazy. Like, I mean, I was just like, whoa, wait, we're actually going through with this.
And this is the series that innovated it, because 28 Days Later, back in 2002, that was the movie that reinvigorated the zombie genre. So the legacy of this movie is awesome already.
Yeah. And like I kind of look at it as like, in terms of just critical reception and audience reception, the way people have like really appreciated and approached these films when going to view them, it very much was reminding me more of how the recent Planet of the Apes movies have been treated by audiences and critics alike. Where it's just like, hey, wait a minute, like, these are blockbuster films. Like, these are like, you know, big budget, like they have really cool action and like spectacle to them in some ways. 28 Years Later has some breathtaking cinematography, Bone Temple has one crazy climax. It's not even an action climax, but it is one hell of a cool climax in it. And we don't know what this third one's going to lead to, but like the way, like, it just feels, it was like, wow, this very much reminds me of how those rebooted Planet of the Apes movies were done.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Good comp.
For me, I think, as I just alluded to, there's something magical about the 28 series. And like I said, the first movie innovated so much back when the zombie genre was kind of sagging. And then the follow up, okay, but at least we get to see the expanded world of like trying to reclaim back from the, again, talking specifically within the zombie genre. You don't get too much of that. And then now coming back, kind of like a legacy sequel kind of thing. What would you consider this a legacy sequel, guys? I'm actually debating that in my head right now.
I would just call it a pure sequel.
Just a pure sequel.
Personally, because it's a
Yeah.
it's a continuation of the chronology.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is where it gets really fucking nebulous, but it really seems it seems like we're gonna get a new Scream movie next year. Not to go long-winded and hijack you, we're gonna get a new Scream movie next month, rather. It feels like each one of those Scream movies, Scream 5 and Scream 6, were kind of like written in an isolationist sense. Like we're figuring this out as we go along. With this, it seems like a real plan.
Yeah,
it seemed like it was a real
agree
plan.
to the contract or not. Like,
yeah. Like Nev Campbell, she's not going to be a part of Scream 6. Oh, we got to redo this.
Exactly.
Is anyone else going to say pro-Palestine things? Because if so, we have to get rid of them.
Kevin Williamson was like, all right, any of you other fuckers want to speak up now? No, but like 28 years later, though, has that, though. Like it feels like, it just really feels like a natural continuation of the story. And due to the fact that part of the story is the passage of time, that's where I kind of absolve it from being a legacy sequel in general, because every subsequent movie takes place significantly later than the previous.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also look at it as like, you could have saw 28 years later without seeing anything prior. And same with this film. Like, if you didn't see those first two movies, you would be fine. Like, they don't heavily rely on you having to see those movies. They get you caught up to speed in 28 years later with what the rage virus was, what happened to society and everything. And you kind of see that in the first act of that movie where it's Spike and his father going out into the world. And then it becomes like, a different story in the second and third act. And in here, like, they're just continuing to play with this world.
Yeah. So basically the only reason why I bring that up is that there is kind of a weight to this through those years. There is a power to the legacy sequels, to the remakes and all that stuff. It's just been such a mishandled concept. But it feels like people are starting to finally get it. But regardless, yes, as it stands on its own, stylistically, Bone Temple does contrast so much with 28 years. Like, bruh, like, oh, not a single cut to archive footage of people shooting arrows in like a 1950s Robin Hood movie. Okay, cool. All right. No fancy spins off of those like Matrix style 20, put up 1,000 cameras in a circle. No, you do feel that lack of style, or at least over the top style as it did with Garland. But the core of this movie, the messaging and the there's kind of a trudgingness here with this movie. Very British in a way, if you think about it. But no, what I do very much enjoy with this movie is, again, it's Garland's writing. It's really what it comes down to. Oh my goodness, the director for this one,
Nia DaCosta.
Thank you. Their directing is more subtle and takes a backseat in comparison to Garland's. And Garland, but with Garland with writing, here it's a through line through the whole thing, and that's basically what we were here to see, right? 28 years, its own self-contained story, but what else can we do with it? I mean, actually, is it self-contained? Arguably, yes, I think so. But what they do with the end with the Jimmy Gang,
oh yeah,
but I'd say self-contained. I would argue very much self-contained. It tells its own story,
and like I get what you're saying there too about the style. The thing though, I think DaCosta did a better job than Danny Boyle and Garland did with 28 years.
Right.
Is I think she was able to juggle multiple plot lines way better and have them slowly intertwine a lot better, I think, than 28 Years Later did. It's not that 28 Years Later like was a mess with its plot lines, but it did feel like that first act, the second act, and third act, it felt a bit disjointed with how things were progressing through that story. But like overall, the writing was just so good, the interactions, and where it ultimately leads up to, and where it's an emotional payoff. Where I was like, okay, like I can forgive it for that. This really felt like, oh my gosh, she did such a great job, like stitching this all together, being like, okay, like, you know, we cut to the Jimmys doing this, we'll cut to Dr. Ian doing this, we'll go back to the Jimmys, and like, you know, and then slowly as you're watching the two paths about to intertwine, it's really it's exciting. Like I was like, you know, I can't wait honestly for the Jimmys to meet Dr. Ian, because here you have like these anti-Christ, like Satanist worshippers over here, and then you have this guy who doesn't have like a no-kill policy as like his code, but he's an atheist and everything, so he doesn't believe in any of like the afterlife stuff. And it's like, how the hell are these two gonna interact? And honestly, like the interaction that Sir Jimmy and Dr. Ian have is probably my favorite scene in the movie, and the whole conversation they have by the river is amazing. There are so many, like, this is the one thing too, and it's crazy to think this. As much as I did love 28 Years Later, and it was in my top 10, Bone Temple to me had so many moments of just like, I went, oh my God. Like, you know, it's just like, because I was just like, we're actually going there with this. And I felt like either it's credit to DaCosta for knowing how to pull it off directionally, or it's, you know, credit to Danny Boyle and Alex Garland for, like, you know, they laid the groundwork in that first movie, and now they're like, okay, let's get to cooking now. Like, we got everything established here. We can really run with ideas here and really get things going. Because it was like, there were so many moments in this movie I was like, oh, wow, like, this is amazing. I mean, there's a line that somebody says in this movie. It's just a simple line. No, I don't have a ticket. And I gasped out loud when it happened.
That was a good
credit
moment.
to the actor who said it, because the way it's said is amazing. And I was just sitting there in theaters going, holy shit, we're doing it. Like, I was like, this is awesome.
So well acted, so well cut.
Yeah, so well cut. Like, you know, it's just like, you know, how that whole scene is played out and leading up to that. Like, and that's the other thing too. Like, you know, because I've seen the zombie genre try to do the things that this movie does. But it's like, you know, they either spend little to no time with it, The Walking Dead, so that when something does happen like that, it feels rushed or out of nowhere. Or it's done in a B-movie level that they just go over the top with it. It's just like, oh, zombies have memories. Look, this guy picked up a light machine gun and now he's spraying down all the survivors. It's just like, okay, cool. With 28 Years Later, both the movies here, they have played whatever idea they introduced that might make you go like, oh shit, like, you know, when zombie movies try to do this, that typically spells disaster. No, the team behind these movies knows how to present it, spend enough time with it, even give it like a little bit of scientific reasoning to it, that like when the payoff comes, it feels earned and deserved.
Joe is fired up. I love this. I love
You
this.
know,
for
very
him.
well said. No, all top to bottom, well said. And that actor or actress who says that line that you mentioned about the ticket too. I make this comparison a lot. I understand, but it's like I call it this in horror movies too. I mean, it's kind of contradictory now because horror is so well represented at this year's Academy Awards. It's really inspiring. But I make the comparison to Anthony Michael Hall in Halloween Kills. I say that like like anytime there's like a really blowing away performance in a horror movie, I always bring up Anthony Michael Hall. I'm like, man, is he working hard for that Oscar that he knows he's not going to get, but damn it, I love it. Like, you know, like just I love the art of the game, you know what I mean? And in that performance, you nailed it there. No, I'll say too, you know, you can tell a great movie too when you're watching it. Here's a good litmus test, especially a movie like this that has multiple different seemingly staccato up to a point, plot threads that are sort of isolationist until they come together like in an anthological way, kind of like Zach Kreger's Weapons, is that when it cuts to something else, you're mad because you're like on the edge of your seat, excited to see what happens next. But then what it cuts to wraps you up once again in a matter of minutes and rivets you. And that's what this movie does. This movie is ballsy in the way that it like continues to kind of pluck you out of things and pluck you out of what is really kind of a quest movie in so many ways. It plucks you out of the journey to take you somewhere else and transport you to a new setting, but it really feels natural. And I'll talk more about this after the intermission too. But thematically, this movie really comes alive too. Thematically, what this movie, and this is the chapter of the movie where we would be calling it like middle part syndrome, where it doesn't feel like it has a defined beginning and it doesn't feel like it has a defined end. That's not the case with this. This movie feels perfectly contained. It feels like a great second half of a book, and thematically really sets itself up for a moving, and I mean moving in an emotional sense too, because the first movie was very emotional. I found to be 28 years later very emotional. A very moving third part too.
Yeah. The other thing too about this movie that I ended up really loving, and you guys can play off of this before the intermission or even after, is where 28 years. I know I just talked about how like the ending of the first movie had a very emotional ending, but then you get to like the last 30 seconds of the movie, and I brought it up in our review with me and Don, but I was like, I don't know what the hell this sequel is going to be, Bone Temple, but like the last 30 seconds went way too crazy where the Jimmies were first introduced. Dude, when the Jimmies are first introduced in this movie and every scene after, you want to talk about, I don't know who's scarier or who I don't want to see outside my house. The vampires from Sinners or the Jimmies. But the fact of the matter is, both of them are led by the same damn actor. So in any case, they're both like groups of people that are led by Jack O'Connell, who gives another great performance here as like a villainous like leader. But like, God, man, they are scary to be around, man. And the entire time I am fearing for Spike's life. Like, oh my God, like, yeah, you're not necessarily the main character this time around, but I think one of the coolest things about this movie is you were the main character last movie, now you're kind of like a secondary character here, yet I'm so attached to you, and everything that's happening in this plot line, I'm like, oh my God, but what about Spike? What's happening with him?
I'm waiting for that actor. What's his name?
Alfie Williams.
Yeah.
Or the lead, Jack O'Connell, excuse me.
Jack O'Connell, I'm like, Jesus Christ. I feel like he's going to get typecast into that kind of role.
I am scared to become the next Christoph Waltz.
Next movie, he's going to be like a Scottish werewolf leading other werewolves or something crazy ass in that same vein.
He is like the Pied Piper of fucking nut jobs. Like when it comes to playing characters. I mean, he is good. You know, and it would be, and I assume he would. You know what a role, and this is kind of sounds weird because he doesn't look like him, and this is just coming off the dome here. I haven't written or said this before aloud, so this is just a random hot take coming at you hot. Like, you'd have to make him up a lot, and I really think it's because like Michael Shannon always plays like authoritative characters, stern authoritative characters, but he does so dimensionally. Like, you know who Jack O'Connell I think could really embody and actually be very convincing is if they were ever to make a true Charles Manson movie.
Dude, you might be cooking with that idea, and if any Hollywood executive ever stumbles upon this show, you might have just given them $1 million idea.
Yeah, you know, I would be happy to write an outline. Jack O'Connell, though, is phenomenal. He is on his way to being one of this generation's truly great actors. I whispered to Catherine because, you know, I've talked about Sinners. We talked about Sinners ad nauseum. It was on my favorites of the year list, too. After the opening scene, which takes place in that, like, that empty community pool when they leave, and then they start walking down that like that trail, I whispered to Catherine, I said, is this the Rocky Road to Dublin? Like, O'Connell's great. I mean, he's so good. And he's just really terrifying. And you can tell, like, this is a guy who doesn't half-ass anything. He whole-asses it. Like, he is really an arresting presence in this movie, too. Like, the best thing you can say about his performance, you totally get why weak weasel people follow him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you totally get it. He's charismatic in a menacing way. He's unhinged. He's got a great one-off line delivery too during a fight in a warehouse. He's not even on camera when he yells the phrase "Tubby Night Night." Like, he's so fucking good, man. I mean, I love Jacko. Kind of loved him in Sinners. He was in The Man with the Iron Fists many years ago. He's just tremendous. He was even the best performance, I would argue, in that crappy Amy Winehouse movie Back to Black.
It's so cool too, because like going off of where it's weird too to think that his character is introduced at the beginning of 28 Years Later when he's a kid, and like, you know, and it's just like, you know, how much that scene is pivotal to this movie. It's weird. Like, I'm wondering, like, once you put all these movies together, all three of these movies, I'm wondering, like, you know, watching in one viewing how it's gonna be, because it's like there are so many scenes in 28 Years Later that kind of really do tease up Bone Temple, and I'm wondering what has Bone Temple really teasing up whatever the hell's coming next. Other than the obvious, like, end scene, of course, but, like, even moments throughout this movie. But, like, you know, they had the moments of, like, him, like, he's with a bunch of people who, like him, were a kid when this stuff started, and, like, Spike, who's born into this world. It's crazy to see, like, the different, like, dynamics of kids who grew up in this, like, hellscape landscape of the apocalypse, and then the kid who was born into this is just survival, this is what you have to do, and just how, like, Spike is just like, well, you guys are nuts. And it's like, bro, Spike, you guys live on an island where, like, they send you off to go get supplies when you turn the age of 18, and, like, there's some weird cultist shit happening there too.
Yeah, they do, like, you're now at the point now in this story, and you saw it even the last movie with Spike too, is the generation of kids that know nothing else besides this hellish world.
Yeah.
And you start to feel that grimness of that and the weight of that. And Spike, we talk about it though. Spike really does take a back seat in this movie, not in a negative way, but more in an observational way.
Yeah.
Because he learns very quickly that, like, because the movie, it's funny how 28 Years Later ends with a little bit of it, like, optimism that he found a group that's going to keep him safe. And then that's fucking
it just
wiped away.
Hell no.
10 minutes of this movie wipes away where it's like, oh, this is not where Spike belongs. Like, and we'll talk about it. I want to touch on how I think Nia DaCosta and Alex Garland thoughtfully expand the themes of this movie when we come back from intermission. And then also, too, we got to talk Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah.
We got to talk Ralph Fiennes as well as Dr. Kelson, who I might levy as my favorite character of the entire series, period. I might say he is my favorite character. We get much more time with him in this movie than we did in the first one. And I think that he's a beautiful character. He's a beautiful soul in an ugly movie, in an ugly series. We'll touch on that more. We're reviewing 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, coming back here on Sleepless with Steve. Don't go anywhere. Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly be back in a couple minutes after this Zoom-sponsored intermission on Sleepless with Steve.
The movie is called We're All Going to the World's Fair. It is now on HBO Max. It's made and featuring a lot of people you probably haven't heard of. The one name, I guess Michael J. Rogers. He's been in a lot of different stuff. He was in Mortal Kombat, the TV series. He's also in Hellraiser Hellseeker. I kind of vaguely remember him in Hellraiser Hellseeker now that I think about it. Even though it was years ago and he did look different. I think I can picture who he is, though. Anyway, the one name that caught my eye on this, David Lowery is a producer on this. David Lowery has made some of the most exceptional movies of the last decade, including A Ghost Story. He made that. He made The Green Knight. He made Pete's Dragon. David Lowery is one of my favorite directors working today. Yeah. So, and like I said, he's just a producer, but he's so damn good. The director of this is Jane Schoenbrunn. They're the one who directed and wrote the movie as well. But this is a strange movie to summarize. I'm going to do my best here because it's 86 minutes long, occasionally feels longer. But it premiered at Sundance, and I remember it premiering at Sundance. I think it conflicted with Cha-Cha Real Smooth, which is why I didn't watch it. But I remember seeing the name of it and like being attracted to the title alone. And then that poster that'll be ingrained in your retina after you look at it. But the movie revolves around a lonely teenage girl. Her name is Casey. She's played by Anna Cobb in her first movie role. And the opening of the movie is her doing this World's Fair challenge, one of these internet challenges where you say, I want to go to the World's Fair 3 times. Correct me if I'm wrong. You say, I want to go to the World's Fair 3 times. Then you prick your finger repeatedly and then you smear blood on your computer. Did I hit all the bases?
And you watch a seizure-inducing
Yeah.
I think-
flashing light video.
That's what it is. You watch this blinking. God, this thing needed to come with an epilepsy warning too. Like, thank God I don't have seizures, because this thing needs to come. That's just one firm trigger warning I believe in, is like the flashing light strobe effect thing. Like, they need to advertise that, I think, even more than they do. And it's for this thing especially, because this thing gets bad at a couple of times. But anyway, so yeah, she does this internet challenge, and the whole movie then essentially follows her. This is a girl who has no social interaction, not very little social interaction. I mean, none. Socially inept. She's got to be what, 12, 13? She's got to be somewhere around that age. And she lives her entire life on her phone or on the computer. And the scary part is that, especially in the, I don't want to say post-COVID because that's nebulous, but in the pandemic era, I think this is frighteningly common. Maybe not to the dramatic extent, but the isolation factor, I think, absolutely. But the movie follows her because after you do this World's Fair challenge, it's common for people to post videos on the internet of like their body changing in very weird ways. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a guy and it involves Tetris. And it's so bizarre. And it's so damn bizarre. And you're sitting there like, I think it was at that point I was like, what the fuck did I make these guys watch? If I didn't know this was this weird, I'd have saved it for StevePulaski.com. I mean, but anyway, there's only really two actors in the movie. It's Anna Cobb, who plays the lead girl, Casey, and then there's Michael J. Rogers, who plays this internet user named JLB, who messages her and sort of like watches over people who play this game, like watches them through the videos they upload in lieu of taking the World's Fair challenge. That is the plot of this movie.
Back in better than ever. It's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. Second half of the show, talking 28 years later, The Bone Temple. And I want to bring up this before I get into the themes and everything. I feel like that would be a better pivot to head into closing thoughts. We got to talk Ralph Fiennes. One of the coolest things that 28 years later did that I thought, and I didn't see the trailer. I didn't see the trailer really for either of these movies. One of the coolest things 28 years later did, though, was like the paratext, like the posters and everything, showed you that like temple of skulls, that tower of skulls, which immediately out of context inspires like fear, especially with the context of the zombie movies. You know, like this is all these dead people and like who's hunting them and everything. But then you watch 28 years later and you get the context of what is known as the Bone Temple. And it's really disarmingly sweet. And it's really something that's quite frankly beautiful and is curated by Dr. Kelson as sort of like an ossuary is the term for those who have died from the rage virus. In this movie, you have that. He looks like a Mad Max Fury Road character. You have the image on the poster of Ralph Fiennes like ferally screaming. And he's got the iodine all over him to protect from getting bit. And it looks like a cry for help. It looks like he's overcome by the virus. And once again, now it's not that reveal of what the context of that isn't like disarmingly sweet like it is in the Bone Temple. But man, it sets up a rollicking sequence that is going to probably be, I know we're only in the ass end of January and there's 11 months worth of movies to still be released, but that is a very early contender for one of the most memorable scenes of the year. One of the most unexpected.
It's a beautiful subversion. It really is. And this is, look, generational actor, one of the greatest of all time.
Easily.
And to be able to go from Eamon Geth, in Schindler's List, and Lord Voldemort, the literal devil, right? To this, where
the next pope too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Exactly. No, for his role in this film, he is just the heart of it all, and it's such a beating heart in a world of such unease and ugliness, as you were talking about, Steve. it's like embracing the world that you're in. That's basically the theme of potentially these three movies these three later movies in the series. We'll see what the third one, but that's what I'm getting out of it, which I think is a very timely theme and message. Where it's like, yeah, no, this is terrible. Maybe people aren't getting flayed alive and then being lit on fire quite yet, but the political climate and economics and terrible things. I mean, hell, we got genocides going on, so maybe we are. But in terms of how it feels like for a Western audience, it's getting bleaker. It's getting bleaker, and you're not gonna solve the world overnight. You're not gonna maybe cure the world and turn it into this beautiful thing. But you can embrace. You can wade through it in as best the way that you can and embrace what beauties you can find and make peace with it, right? You still have a job to do, and it's still hard work, and it's still, gross and disgusting and dangerous. But there is what was the line in Bone Temple where it's like peace and I forget the phrase, but it's basically when he's taking drugs, right? He's licking the arrow, so to speak, not, or literally, but finding that peace and that quiet in these moments and turning these ugly things in its head. That's one of the core messages I think of these later films in 28 years later that I very much connected with and enjoyed. I don't know who wants to take it from there, but regardless, that's between Fanes
I was trying to
his
find the peace
legacy
quote
of
because
being
that
just.
I know what scene you're talking about, and I remember thinking like that's
Yeah.
such a great line. Like,
And on even further, where he's like talking to Samson, right, and like trying to make something out of this creature that in any other film, and I think everyone was screaming it in the first 28 years movie, where it's like, no, you have him subdued, you should kill him, right, while he's just standing there in front of you. And what they do with it is honestly quite admirable. I don't know if we would do that in real life, but for this film and its purposes, I think it's good.
The movie
nothing wrong
does.
with peace and respite, Samson.
Thank you. Yes, that's it.
There you go. There's there's absolutely the degree of that movie early on that you want Dr. Kelson to kill Samson in that way. You know what I mean? Because you're waiting for Samson to kill Dr. Kelson. You're waiting for that inevitable. It almost feels like an inevitability just because it's like it's working out so beatifically, and this is not a series where there's a lot of beauty. Not only does Spike kind of take a supporting role in this movie, but the zombies themselves do too.
Yeah.
And the thing that's so thematically strong about the Bone Temple, I think, is that if 20 years later was kind of about like the dissolving of family, when Spike, with the mother's mental decline and Spike having to be the man of the house and everything, if 28 years later was about like the decline of family in the what you could consider the end times, then I think the Bone Temple is sort of like an examination of the nature of evil, crossed between Samson and Jimmy Crystal. And what you have here, though, that's explored, especially with the Samson arc, is the shining silver lining of redemption and a potential breakthrough.
Yeah.
In some ways. And that's kind of what Garland, the writer, imbues in Samson, I think, for that purpose, is that it's kind of about, in the way I see it, and I agree with everything you've said too, Dom, is I think the nature of like evil and cruelty is really embedded in this movie too, but there's an underlying sort of theme of redemption and compassion that Ralph Fiennes' Dr. Kelson embodies from the very beginning when we meet him with Spike and his mother in the previous movie.
It's not only just that too. Like everything you're saying is definitely that, but where the movie ends feels like it's like also giving that message of hope, a breakthrough, something coming. Like
So did the last movie, and we saw where that fucking led.
Well, this one's different. Like it was just like
I get
this
what you
one
mean.
we know for sure. We're like, okay, all right. Like, yeah, man. I don't know. Like, do you guys want to get into closing thoughts? I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
Just that line though reminded me of Clerks. Reminded me of Clerks, where it's like you're asking to work a day, or you're being asked to work a day job. You're not being asked to enslave children. And Randall goes, "Yeah, not yet." That's what that reminded me of right there. If we want to parlay into closing thoughts, Joe, if you want to start, then Dom, you can take it, and I'll go last.
For sure. Nia DaCosta, I'm glad Danny Boyle and Alex Garland gave you this opportunity, because I was worried you were going to be put into director's jail after what Marvel did to you. And I was like, she does not deserve this. While the Candyman movie wasn't like amazing, it was like, oh, I see potential here with this director. And even with her other short horror films she made, I was like, I can't wait to see what she does next. And unfortunately, the next was the Marvels. And while I was fine with the movie, I know just box office wise, reception wise as well, not even just from audience, it's just
lowest
Hollywood.
grossing. I think it's the lowest grossing Marvel, or like the biggest bomb for Marvel, isn't it?
Yeah, I would believe it. I mean, just that, and also like, it's a movie that, let's be honest here, Marvel sent out to die. Like, the studio heads were like, yeah, we'll just put it out there to die. I was like, well, fuck, there goes her directing career. So to see her get this opportunity, and it sucks that, of course, this came out not when we're having Winter Storm. It came out a weekend before, but like still, it's still a tough time in January, when it's like you still have some big December hits, and then the weather might play into a factor like it always does. That being said, I'm so glad she got this opportunity. If anything, it's like it shows how much craft she really does have, how great her directing ability is, and also just like, if you give her time to flex her skills and give her a great story and script to work with, as well as two great producers to like kind of be like, hey, like, let us give our input on this, Garland and Danny Boyle here. You make, to me, probably the best of this franchise since the first one. And this is somebody who's liked all the movies thus far. I 28 Weeks is probably my least favorite, but I still like it. But like, I mean, and that's really saying something when it's like, I love the first one. I love 28 Years Later. And to say like, man, this is probably my favorite since the first one, like, that's saying a lot. This is becoming like potentially one of my new favorite film franchises. That like, I'm excited to see where this next chapter goes, especially with this being, if people want to call it a middle chapter, it's very rare too that we get a trilogy of films where the middle chapter gets you even excited, like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen next? I need it now. Because most of the time too, when we get a lot of these trilogies or film franchises, when you get to the middle chapter, it's kind of like, that's what it feels like, the middle chapter. Here, it gave us so much story, a great resolution to a couple characters that we met in the first movie too, that where things lead off and what they're teasing ahead is like, oh my god, like what's this next one gonna be? And I can't wait to find out. I can't wait to see what team comes back. I'm hoping Boyle, Garland, I'm sure they will be. But I like, if they're gonna pass it off to another director, if they're like, fuck it, hey, I don't know, Jordan Peele, what are you doing? You wanted to make a 28 Years Later movie? Like, just like, hey, here you go. I know there's like probably 1,000 other directors they can name. Maybe they'll give the guy who made him, maybe they'll give him an opportunity, like, to make one of these films or something. I don't know, but like, man, I would love it if they get like somebody who might be put in director's jail, bail them out and be like, here, we got you a vehicle. Show what you can do and make something great. Love the performances, love the story, had a great time watching this movie. It's 3.5 out of 4 stars for me.
Not to interrupt your thunder, Dom, though. Just a couple things here. I just sourced though. About Nia DaCosta. Listen to this. This reminds me of like, this is like faint praise, but it reminds me of Showgirls. How Showgirls is the highest grossing NC-17 movie, but it was still a box office bomb. The Marvels, despite being one of the few MCU movies not to break even, is still the highest grossing movie by a black female director at $206 million.
If that ain't say something about the industry.
and before that, because I was trying to think before when you were talking, Joe, I was still listening to you, but I was trying to think, and I had to wind up finding it. I was like, well, what was the previous one then? And it was A Wrinkle in Time by Ava DuVernay, which was also a box office bomb from Disney back in 2018.
Yep, and a movie that almost put her in director's jail.
It did for a long time because she did that Selma.
Yeah.
She did Selma, and then she did the 13th documentary. on Netflix, which was really great. And then she did A Wrinkle in Time, and then like I don't think directed anything for years, but she's more of an advocate. She's become excuse me. She's become more of a social activist, if anything, then too. More so than just a director. Anyway, Dom, don't want to steal your thunder there, my friend.
Yeah, no. Boyle has a very distinct style, and it's jarring at times. But going from Boyle to DaCosta here is equally as jarring. If especially, I can't wait for people to watch these movies back to back and be like, "Damn, what the?" Going from 28 years to Bone Temple, it can be a little crazy. But I love the humanist approach. It's so grounded. You don't really get as nearly as much zombie fighting in this one. And despite some choice scenes, you really don't. It really does come down. I mean, they always do, but it comes down to the human characters fighting amongst themselves. And what the continuation of the themes here of the compassion, the love, and the embracing of the beautiful things and the human side of things amidst all of this terrible stuff continue just again will resonate as the years go on in real life, as they go on right this very moment. And there's just a beauty in that, because I think back to Superman, right? The James Gunn Superman that came out last year, where it's like maybe love is the new punk rock, or what. I think that's the line, right? Yeah. And to be like, yeah, seeing everyone thinking Ralph Fiennes, as you all mentioned, as Ralph Fiennes was the crazy one, but he winds up being the best person, the best human out of all the humans on the Isles, and potentially the best character in this whole damn franchise. Is a beautiful thing in and of itself. 3.5 out of 4 stars for me. Potentially even 4 on a rewatch. I don't know, but I just love the message there. Go ahead, Joe. Muted. You're muted.
Thank you for catching that. It is funny to think, like, in the first movie, when we were told about Ralph Fiennes' character, we were like, oh, that dude's gonna be crazy. Like, he's probably gonna be a psychopath and everything. And then it turns out he's a really sweet guy. And then we're introduced to the Jimmies in the first movie, and they save Spike from a couple zombies.
Yeah.
You're like, these guys are probably gonna be really cool to hang out with. It's just like complete opposite.
Yep.
And I'll take it from here with my closing thoughts. How many horror franchises still continue to surprise you with the 4th entry?
Yeah, that too.
You know, and I go back to thinking about that a lot as a fan of horror movies too. I mean, one of the things that really shows me that we are in the golden age of horror, and have been for a few years now, is the fact that sequels that would ordinarily inspire sort of like an obligatory shrug, or like, of course they're doing this one, like Final Destination 6 or Saw 10 or something like that, or in this case 28 Days 4. Like, the bar and the standard has been raised so high now that if there are even 7 or 8 better horror movies this year than The Bone Temple, the golden age of the genre is going to continue to roll on at the speed of a train swarming with zombies, quite frankly. I mean, think about it. If there are 7 or 8 horror movies that are better than this one this year, God damn, was it a great year. Like, and there's really no reason to believe there isn't, though. We have this genre has such a wealth of voices and individuals working in it right now. Nia DaCosta being one of them.
Yeah, I think Peele's movie, the one he's actually directing, not just producing, but I believe it's coming out this year.
Yeah, and I would assume that it's probably going to have a decent marketing campaign the closer that it gets. And I mean, you have Peele, you have Kreger, you have Perkins, you have so many great directors too. I mean, and that's why, like, we reviewed him on the show too. It's like why and again, I'm trying not to get
Eggers' movie is coming out this year.
Robert Eggers too, Werewolf.
Yeah.
It's why I try not to get too excited for, like, and I'll watch it obviously, but like Scream 7, it's like, even Scream, I feel like Scream 5 and Scream 6, if they came out like 10 years ago, we might not have been as critical about it.
You're so right about this, though.
But now, and I don't think those are particularly great or even good movies, but you know, you look at it now and it's like the bar has just been raised so much higher. You know what I mean? You don't accept the mediocrity anymore too, especially even too when you see how fucking good Saw 10 is, and when you see how good Final Destination Bloodlines is, when you see how good these movies are, like there's no excuse, especially with all the time off, all the time in between. But I didn't mean to launch into kind of a tangent there, but 28 years later, The Bone Temple, though, this is really a terrific sequel in every sense of the word. It does everything you want a middle part to do without giving you sort of the inconsequential or sort of meandering feeling that second parts of trilogies can typically do. And I think that's one of the biggest hills to climb, because switching directors, and I think Danny Boyle, I don't think it was anything personal. I think Boyle just had like a conflict that he couldn't do both of them or wanted to do something else. And DaCosta was on the short list of people that they wanted to take this from, which I commend, because I do think the 2021 Candyman movie is kind of at the point now where it's a little underrated. You know, especially when you consider kind of how that franchise lost its way after the first one. I do think the new Candyman's better than it's kind of remembered for being. But no, I love the thematic through lines of this movie too. And the performances, and this is where we go back to again the bar being raised too. The performances are terrific. Like I said, 15 years ago we weren't talking about performances really in horror movies, and if we did, they were more like, I want to say like artier horror movies, or movies that like clearly were like horror is a secondary genre to thriller or mystery or something like that. This is for a movie that doesn't have that many zombies in it. It's another great zombie movie in this series. It's 3.5 out of 4 stars for me too. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and it had a high bar to clear too.
Yeah.
Given what came before it too, and also I just want to say too, I'm not a real big metal fan. I'm not, but man, what a great use of Iron Maiden. Like what a great use, you know, like. I was talking to Catherine.
What a fun scene, man.
Oh, God.
Somebody in my theater actually clapped at the end of it, and I joined them. I was like, that was hella good, dude.
We were talking about it, too, with the Super Bowl next weekend. And I'm like, you know, the thing is, like, they put the halftime. They always try to make the halftime performances something that, like, captivates the non-sports fan who happens to be watching the game or something like that. So to get more tune-in factor. There's people that only care about the halftime show and stuff. But I've always said, though, I'm like, you know, I like The Weeknd. The Who did a great halftime show like 15 years ago, if you remember that. But I like The Weeknd. I got nothing really against Bad Bunny. I don't know a lot of his music. He's this year's performer. But it's like, and you know, in the context of football and the biggest game of the year, it's like it should be on paper. If you were like conceptualizing the Super Bowl, if it was never a thing, you would put the halftime show as like Rob fucking Zombie or like Iron Maiden or something to get you like jazzed like June. You know what I mean? And watching Ralph Fiennes, I'm like thinking to myself, watching this movie, I'm like, yeah, you know, this is good enough to be a halftime show in itself.
I was gonna say, yeah, just throw him out there, all right? Let him construct the Bone Temple on the fucking logo in the middle.
Honestly, man, you know, like, goddamn. But and it seems like too. I was reading this real briefly, and then we'll wrap up.
I also got something I want to share before we wrap up.
Oh, sure. It does look like I was getting a little nervous because this movie's not been doing particularly well in the theaters. I think it's a combination of the shit weather, and I also think, too, and a lot of people have said this online, I think the closeness, being how close these two movies came out to one another, I think hurt it in a little bit of a way.
I
don't think they did enough to market nor differentiate this one.
They did.
Like, I don't think they did. And it hasn't made its money back yet, but Sony is apparently moving forward with the third installment, which is big news because after Furiosa, man, I don't know if we're getting Mad Max the Wasteland. I don't know if we are. I don't think we are either. Now, granted, that cost way more than this, but it looks like they're moving forward with the trilogy. I got nervous when I saw that opening weekend because I was like, shit, it was less than half of what 28 Years Later made.
It had me worried for a bit too because like you said, because it was called 28 Years Later and this one's called 20 Years Later, The Bone Temple, and I was like, dude, you know, for a franchise that's distinctively 28 days, 28 weeks, 28 years, it's just like, okay, now this next installment is just called 28 Years subtitle. And it's just like, oh shit, I'm like, that might throw people off. Not only that, but when they see like similar characters that were in the first trailer too, they might be like, "Oh wait, is this the same movie or something?" The thing I wanted to bring up is, while it hasn't been confirmed, this is maybe the reason why Danny Boyle stepped away. But he is currently in production with 2 movies. One of them starring Jack O'Connell, so we'll see where that leads to, and the other, Michael B. Jordan. It's like, did this dude watch Sinners and go, hold on a minute, I gotta do something with both these guys?
I got my Oscar in me. Look for 2029 Saints. You know?
It's like that Denzel Washington clip. I'm leaving here with something. I'm
leaving here with something. Great show. Next week is Send Help, correct, Sam Raimi?
Correct, yeah. Unfortunately, I will not be able to join you guys, but that is the review.
So we're making Dom watch a horror movie by himself. Sweet. Yeah, we're gonna see it. Catherine and I are seeing it Saturday. I did not know until I was looking at the AMC app. I think I put this in the chat. Did you know this fucking thing's coming out in 3D?
Yeah.
That shocked me. I know, like, this has got to be, what, outside of Doctor Strange, this has got to be Sam Raimi's only 3D original. It's got to be.
Like, no, I think Drag Me to Hell had a 3D option for it.
Did it?
I think
that was
so.
So long ago. That was so long ago. Did Drag Me to Hell have a 3D? Was Drag Me to Hell a 3D movie? Yeah, you know what? It was released in 3. It did have a 3D. Oh, it had a 3D lenticular cover, but it was not a 3D release.
Okay.
Because I was just shocked. I'm like, man, like, this is like, okay, if this was 2011, I would totally understand this coming out in 3D because everything came out in 3D in that era. But I'm like, man, is it weird to have a movie like that? So Catherine and I are going to see the 3D version because I'm just curious. I'm just blindly curious to see, like, man,
maybe
they really
Oz the Great and the Powerful.
Yeah, you're probably right on that. I always forget Raimi did that.
Yeah, so do I.
And I like that movie. I like that movie quite a bit. But I forget that Raimi did that because it was his least bloody movie. But at any rate, next week we're watching Send Help, which, again, keep chugging along in the year of another great movie with great potential to continue the renaissance of horror. That's our show tonight, far shorter than the shows last week. I want to thank Joe Viso for hosting, as always, Dominic Guanzon as well. Great show reviewing 28 years later, The Bone Temple. Next week, Send Help, the great Sam Raimi. First Sam Raimi review on the show in quite some time, so excited about that as well. Until then, for Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.